What's going on, Bucs fans? Welcome back inside the 813. We are going to bring you, myself and Rock, just about each and every week. Going to change it up a little bit here in the coming weeks, but every Thursday we break down the studs and duds, the X factors, and of course, we have to talk about Todd. I am your host, James Yarcho, editor-in-chief here at the 813, joined by Rock Riley, our boots on the ground there at One Buck. You can follow everything on Twitter at the 813 TV, at JYarcho_Bucks, and at Real Rock Riley. And Rock, couple weeks in a row now, division opponent and an emotional roller coaster, but how are we doing coming out of Hurricane Milton, and coming off of this huge Buccaneers win over the New Orleans Saints?
Tell you what, man, if you would have told me going into the Baltimore Ravens game against Lamar Jackson and that big old back that they got that hasn't lost a step, and both teams are going to be 4-2. It's going to be on Monday Night Football, and the Buccaneers are playing really good football. I mean, I would beyond take that. So we had a hurricane. We dealt with that. Tampa Bay came through strong. And now to go to Monday Night Football, two really good teams going to battle it out. Man, I'm telling you what, man, I'm feeling pretty darn good, James.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting game. I think, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that this Bucks Ravens game has the second highest over under of the week. There are points to be scored on Monday Night Football, but before we get to that, let's talk about this 51-27 win over the New Orleans Saints, a 50 burger hung up in the Superdome. And we got to talk about the studs and duds. And I will defer to you, good sir. Who is your stud for this week?
This is actually a hard one. I actually spent time late last night in the middle of the night. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning. I know you're already pretty much getting up, James Yarko, but I was like, I can't sleep. Let me see, who am I going to go for my stud? And I was going down and I look at what the game Sean Tucker had, and he's getting the awards this week, and he waited his time and the running game going. But I'm going to go with the rookie safety, the rookie DB. They use him a lot of different ways. Out of Georgia, Tyke Smith. He is playing like he is a 3 or 4 year veteran. He's coming out of Georgia. That's one of the best programs in the country. So he already is, his game is up compared to some other rookies. He is got this knack where not only is he making plays, he's able to punch out the ball at the same time. He's done this a couple of times. He did that early with that scoop and score for Antoine Winfield Jr. I'm looking at his numbers: 5 tackles, interception of Rattler, 6 games. I would say in 6 games, he is right now, he's in contention for Rookie of the Year defensively. I'm telling you what. And he's heady. He's making the right plays. Moment is too big. So I'm looking, he was the second highest grade cornerback this past week. Stephen Smith, I'm telling you what, he's playing like a veteran. He is my stud.
Yeah, and that's a great pick. And there was another forced fumble that he had in the game that ended up being overturned because they ruled that the pass was incomplete, but he had another big punch out. There was a sack that he was going to get. I remember talking to my television about it. He was going to get a sack and was blatantly held. They didn't call it. The Saints got away with a lot of holding. Bucks got away with some things too, but that was a flag infested game. But his numbers could have been even more impressive. And something I wrote up about, on the 813 about Tyke Smith was he is Pro Football Focus's 16th highest rated corner in the NFL this season. He's ahead of Jair Alexander. He's ahead of Devin Witherspoon, who was, rookie of the year contender last year, one of the best corners in the league his rookie season. Jalen Ramsey, he's rated above all these guys. And you have seen a steady progression for him each and every week, where you can kind of go back and look at Zion McCollum. He struggled some in his rookie year trying to understand the system, trying to understand all of his responsibilities, got better in his second year, and now he is a stud corner. He's PFF's third ranked corner in the NFL. So you're starting to already see that growth for Tyke Smith. He's going to continue to get better the more opportunities that he gets. I love that pick. Tyke is becoming an absolute weapon for this Buccaneers defense. For my stud, you know, the obvious choice is Sean Tucker, right? Everybody's talking about the game that Sean Tucker had, and really it's something else that I wrote about on the 813 was that it was mostly a fourth quarter. 107 of his 136 yards came in the fourth quarter, 64 of them came on that final drive. So I look to the guy that was consistent and steady the entire game, and to me had the biggest play of the game, what really turned things back into the Buccaneers' favor. I'm going with Chris Godwin. 11 receptions, 125 yards, 105 yards after catch, 2 touchdowns. And to me, that quick little screen that they threw to Chris Godwin on 2nd and 5, where he broke a couple of tackles and took it 55 yards to the house, giving the Bucs a 31-24 lead there in the second half. That to me just changed everything. That's when everything flipped in the Bucs' favor. It calmed Baker Mayfield down, who had a little bit of happy feet going on in that second quarter. He had thrown the 3 interceptions, not all his fault, but he had thrown them. And Godwin's play right there is what really changed the game for the Bucs, both offensively and defensively. The defense fed off of that. Godwin ended up being one of Brady's 3 stars of the week that Tom Brady does every week. So Chris Godwin again continues to be one of the best receivers in the NFL.
You know, he's making it hard on Jason Light and the capologist because he's going to get paid. How can you let this guy go? And when the Bucks signed Mike Evans to that big deal, and they're bringing back these guys, they've already got the highest paid safety in the NFL, and Antoine Winfield. You got the highest paid left tackle in all the NFL. You can't have the highest paid at all these positions. And I thought, you know what? Godwin might have to, he's a great guy. He's a team leader. He does a great job blocking. Bowles was talking about that. I know Bruce Arians had mentioned this, what he's doing in the blocking game. Sometimes we don't see that much of a factor. I don't know how you could let him go. And they paid Evans. But it's incredible, and I think he's just so comfortable, James, in being in that slot position. I know Dave Canales tried to move him. I mean, that's where he's at. Baker's going to him, and you're right. He's totally healthy. He's breaking tackles. He's getting yak. Uh, Pretty much almost every week so far, we could have him as the stud of the game. So can't argue with you there. And if he continues, it's going to be cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching.
Yeah, and according to our stud tracker here, Godwin and Mayfield are both tied now with 3 studs of the week apiece. So it might be a photo finish for those two to be awarded the 813's stud of 2024. But let's talk about some of the duds and why Chris Godwin is so important because back in that slot position, they don't seem to have that guy that could replace him if he leaves right now. My dud of the week is Sterling Shepard. And look, he had back to back really solid games, against the Eagles and against the Falcons. But you point to that second quarter against the Saints where things started to unravel, things started to fall apart a little bit. A lot of that was on Sterling Shepard. He had 2 really dumb penalties that were costly for the Buccaneers offense, was really starting to lose his cool and lose his composure. And I think that kind of started the downward spiral. And I'm not saying that it's 100% on him, but at the same time, he was compounding problems that were already creeping up. In this type of game, I guess we kind of have come to expect Mike Evans and Marshawn Lattimore to lose their cool in these matchups because of that rivalry and the viciousness and venom that is a part of that, head to head rivalry. But, it was Shepard this time that was, making those dumb mistakes. And you can't have that. Not on the road, not against a division opponent. I like Sterling. Baker likes Sterling. We saw that the last couple of weeks where he was getting in the end zone, he was getting targets, but he's got to keep his cool. He's got to keep his demeanor and not get dumb, costly penalties that hurt this offense. Otherwise, things can get out of control like we saw in New Orleans.
That's a good point because especially like a team like the Ravens that they're going to play, you can't afford to be getting penalties or making mistakes. You're pretty much going to have to play almost mistake-free football. And the schedule continues. Then the Falcons, we're going to be seeing the 49ers. So he's getting his opportunity. And I was surprised watching him on the sidelines. Yeah. Why are you losing your cool? You're too hyped up. You're a veteran. So I would agree with that. I'm going to go with another wide receiver and it's Jalen McMillan. Now, he looked really good to me in the preseason and in training camp, and I didn't learn my lesson, James. I'm always saying the same thing, whether I'm covering spring training in baseball or it's NFL preseason training camp. Don't get too hyped up, but I was. He was catching everything. He was high pointing the ball. He was in the slot. He was going deep. Baker was trusting in him. He said that was his number one priority. I remember we talked with him early in training camp, and he said, I want to earn the trust of Baker Mayfield. Well, Baker Mayfield hit you on a perfectly thrown ball. Now, I know mistakes happen, but it was right there. I remember when I was playing freshman high school football, the coach said, hit him in a bad place, the hands. It was in the hands. You can't afford to have drops like that if you want to get more opportunities because Baker has to trust you. So, and he just hasn't shown. He hasn't been able to get open. He's gonna hit the open man. You know what I mean? He's going through his progressions. Bowles even said that he and Lee and Cohen are really on the same page. He's making the right progressions, right moves. So, Jalen McMillan, if you want more chances and you want more targets, you gotta catch the ball when it's right to you. I'm gonna give it, and I'm not losing. It's only we're only 6 games in, so I'm not losing faith in Jalen McMillan. I think he does have skills. I saw that with my own eyes. But for this game, I'm going to give you my dud.
Yeah, and you're spot on. He had a touchdown catch in week one. He had another catch against Detroit. And to be fair to McMillan, he did miss the last two games. There was a little bit of rust that needed to be shaken off. But you're right, that ball hit him square in the hands, goes flying up in the air, and ends up being an interception. That one is 100% not on Baker. And I will die on the hill that wide receivers need to have interceptions credited to them in the box scores when it's a catchable pass that gets batted into the air. That's not the quarterback's fault, and it should be reflected on their statistics. But McMillan, you're right. Yeah, he was really impressive in the preseason, in training camp. Started off the season relatively well, but he when you have an opportunity like that you blow, you're not going to gain more. Now, I guess I would have liked to have seen the Bucs go right back to Jalen McMillan and let him kind of get past that play, similar to what they did with Bucky Irving on Thursday Night Football. He had a fumble. The Bucs went right back to giving him the ball. Like, don't sweat it. Put it out of your mind. Be a goldfish. All those things. Let's move on to the next play. But McMillan didn't get another target the rest of the game. I think if they're going to beat the Ravens, McMillan needs to be a bigger part of the offense and help out Mike Evans, help out Chris Godwin, help out the run game, help out Baker, all those things. But if you're not making the most of the limited opportunities that you get, then you're not going to get more opportunities. Bucky had limited opportunities. He kept doing well with them. So those opportunities kept growing. I imagine it'll be the same for Sean Tucker. Jalen has got to be able to catch that first target that comes his way in order for Baker to say, all right, I'll get him the ball again.
Mhm. I mean, and I don't want it to make it look like I know there's some, oh my God. I'm not, look, it's 6 games in. It's a long season. Not
Mm-hmm.
everybody, but I mean, you got, like you said, you got it. NFL, not for long. The opportunities, big opportunities don't come around a lot. So you got to make the best of it. Got to start getting open, work a little harder, go out there with the jugs gun after practice. I've seen a lot of guys over the years, the practice is done and they're out there and they're just constantly catching ball. Do that. Do that. Whatever it takes, man. Put in the extra time. That's what I want to see from Jalen McMillan. So hopefully he'll be a stud in one of our upcoming games soon.
Yeah, that would be outstanding. And I don't know, maybe he can have Zion McCollum work with him on how to use those hands because McCollum's hands have been fantastic this year. But Rock, as every week goes, So do our conversations about Todd Bowles. It is time to talk about Todd, and there's plenty to discuss. But you were able to get a little bit of that post game and day after reaction from those guys after such a huge win, following such a awful moment for the Bay Area when Milton rolled through. But what's going on with Todd Bowles?
Today, now, I have been critical of Todd Bowles at times, his game decision, maybe not being able to light a fire, guys not coming out fast. Lately, they have. They've started out. That's been good. I am here to give Todd Bowles a ton of credit. He made halftime adjustments, and the players told us that. There was a talk by some of the veterans that got the young guys together and lit a fire, so that's good. But also, the defenders were saying, you saw what was happening with Rattler. It looked like early on, like, oh no, not another. Is a rookie quarterback going to be going down the field? What's the deal on this? And they didn't tell us, some of the defensive players that we heard from wouldn't be specific, but they said Bowles picked up on what Rattler and they were doing on offense, and we made defensive adjustments, and they came back out and they had a shutout. What was it, 51 to nothing, other than that second quarter. So good job by Bowles. It's all 4 quarters, and that's a sign of a good coach on changing things up, seeing it, getting the message through, and then the players having to execute. So Todd Bowles, good job with the defensive adjustments, and Rattler and the offense. It was a totally different game, third quarter and fourth quarter compared to that second quarter.
Yeah, I had somebody text me that they were real angry with Todd Bowles in that second quarter. And I told him, I was like, no, let's back off for a minute. I said, you can go back to the game plan itself against the Falcons, and it was not a good game plan. You could see that on the field. I said, watching this game, watching his approach, I like the game plan. It's the players that aren't executing in the second quarter. And you're right. It was that one quarter, and all three facets were terrible. All three facets of the Bucs team in the second quarter were bad. Three interceptions from Baker. The defense couldn't stop anything, but then they were having to go up against the Saints offense on short fields. Special teams gave up a touchdown. It was an abject disaster. But to Todd's credit, to your point, they made the adjustments and they came out in the second half looking like the team that we expect them to be. And one of the points that I had made, on my other show was think back to, you don't even have to go back that far. Go to the pre Arians Bowles era. Think back to the Dirk Cutter teams, the Lovey Smith teams, the Raheem Morris teams. How many of those teams would have gone up 17 to nothing, then trailed 27 to 24 at halftime and just rolled over and died? And I think that speaks volumes to the leadership within the coaching, the leadership within the locker room amongst the players. Like, this team was not going to quit. They were not going to roll over and just say, "Oh, crap, it's happening again like it did against Atlanta where we're falling apart in one quarter." This time they recovered, they reacted, they rebounded. You saw the quarterback pressures go up. 3 sacks in the second half from this defense, 2 interceptions. That forced fumble by Tyke Smith that didn't count because they ruled it incomplete. To be fair, I would have ruled it incomplete as well. I kind of thought that one was going to get overturned. If they had overturned the one early in the game that Antoine returned for a touchdown, I would have been livid because that was clearly a catch. But it's like this defense kind of clicked. And you're right. They saw what the Saints were trying to do. They saw how Rattler was operating, but they didn't roll over. They didn't quit. And that's a testament to what Todd Bowles is as the head coach of this team.
And you know what, James? I think it also helped having Elijah Cansey and
Mhm.
Antoine Winfield back there. How much did that help, don't you think?
Oh yeah, well, and Zion even talked about it. He didn't say it. I'll paraphrase, but essentially, it was the confidence that he had to play as aggressively as he did in that game because he knew Antoine was back there, and that's kind of what part of what Antoine brings to this team. Yeah, he can line up anywhere. He can be in the box. He can be in the slot. He can be at safety. He can be a pseudo linebacker. He can blitz. All of those things, but the confidence of the other members of the defense, especially the secondary, to play a little looser, play a little more aggressive, go for those takeaways and those pass breakups because they know that Antoine's got their back, both literally and figuratively. It's massive. Absolutely massive. We heard Yaya Diaby's name a lot more because of the impact that Kalijah Cansey has. And you pair that up with the emergence of Logan Hall over the course of the last month or so. And this defense can be legitimately scary. They got a real tough test ahead of them. And we're going to talk about that coming up here. But I mean, Antoine and Kalijah, you and I said it on this show. I've said it for a couple of weeks on the website and on my other show. They change everything that Todd Bowles can do from a defensive standpoint in terms of scheme, personnel, and how he can bring different pressures.
Yeah, it really is incredible on how he hasn't played at all and the way he played in that game. Brian Baldinger from NFL Network, he loves Kalijah Cansey because he
Oh, yeah.
saw him on the beach down in like Fort Lauderdale when he was a rookie, and he saw him and he was like, "You're the rookie, the buck," and he started showing him all these moves, and then he had brought the Baldy breakdown, and it was incredible. So for him to play like he did after being out all those weeks, that shows you how good he is. Give credit too to Jason Light. I'm not trying to be a homer here at all. Like these drafts, these players that they have acquired the last couple of years, last 2 years. Look at this rookie class. Great job. But Kalijah Cansey, it's huge. It helps out Vita Vea. It's 1-on-1. And they're going to need that, James, against the Ravens on Monday night. Oh my God. I'm looking at film of this offense. It's scary, James. It is.
Yeah, and let's go ahead and talk about it. Let's get into our X factors for Monday night football. And you take a look there, Baltimore has a two-time NFL MVP at quarterback. You have an emerging Zay Flowers who has been on an absolute heater the last couple of weeks, establishing himself as a legit wide receiver one in the NFL, something that Lamar Jackson really has not had since he became the quarterback. And you bring in the timeless Derrick Henry, who is running like he's 23 years old again. He's the leading rusher in the NFL. And I would go into these games before, when the Bucs would have to face Derrick Henry, and it was like, all right, whatever, no big deal. The Bucs have a top 5 run defense, and it's all Derrick Henry. But this isn't Ryan Tannehill or Will Levis that's at quarterback, so it's not all Derrick Henry. And the Bucs have the number 12 rushing defense in the NFL compared to their typical top 5. So when you take a look at this matchup, what Baltimore can do offensively and defensively versus what the Buccaneers can offer, who do you look to or what do you look to as your X factor on Monday Night Football?
Blink. They have to be really sharp it's gonna come down to fundamentals. They've gotta be solid in tackling because Lamar Jackson is so good, so shifty, and like you said, Derrick Henry seems like he has been revived, and they're gonna have to be able it's gonna be hard, Henry's gonna get his yards. Lamar Jackson is gonna get his yards as well, but they can't miss tackles. They can't allow big plays. You can't play catch up. This is gonna be different. You can't play catch up because they're getting better each week, James. They had a couple of flubs early on. And at the press conference after the game, one of the reporters said, to Lamar Jackson, do you feel like you are the best offense, would you say? And in the NFL, and he's like, what are you looking at like with stats? We're looking at just scoring, putting up points. That's what we're looking at. And you can feel the confidence. So I think it's really going to come down to the defense. I think Baker Mayfield, and you mentioned it like with the over under, I think they're going to be able to put up points. They don't have that. This is a very good run defense, one of the top in the NFL that they're going to go up against. But pass defense, not that great. And Baker Mayfield, he's feeling it now. Like I said, he's making the right reads. I think the Bucs are going to put up some points, but I don't want to get into the shootout and trying to match it. So really, it's going to come down to like solid fundamentals. Bowles says a couple of times, like sometimes our eyes shift or this and that. Can't have any of that on this. I think this is the biggest challenge so far. It was tough in Detroit, and they got it done. This is a big one. So be on your tackling. Got to be playing good fundamental defensive football in order to have a shot at winning this one Monday night.
Yeah, and to your point, one of the X factors that I have written down is Vita Vea. And the reason is when you're going up against Derrick Henry, you have to get to him early. If Derrick Henry's getting into the second level and it's on guys like Jordan Whitehead or Antoine or Tyke Smith to try to bring him down, he's going to shrug him off. You have to either stop Derrick Henry with your beefy guys up front or you have to gang tackle him. And that was the problem that the Saints had with Sean Tucker late in the game. They didn't have anybody in the second or third level that could bring him down one on one. That's exactly what the Bucs are going to face with Derrick Henry. So you're 100% right. The fundamentals have to be there for Derrick Henry to not get ahead of steam and start blowing through these guys like he's the unstoppable Yeti going up against all these teeny tiny defensive backs. One of the other X factors that I had written down outside of Vita Vea was Chris Godwin. And I know I talked about him as my stud, and the Bucs offense really has gone the way, as far as Chris Godwin has gone this season. But the challenge here is Chris Godwin has been a mismatch in every single game this season. He's going to be a mismatch in every game the rest of the season. This is the game where he might go up against an equal. You talk about the Ravens passing defense, it's not very good. The outside corners, real bad. Their best corner is Marlon Humphrey, who plays out of the slot. And he is one of the highest graded corners according to Pro Football Focus. So Chris Godwin is going to have a major challenge ahead of him. And if the Bucs are going to take advantage, they have to put Marlon Humphrey on skates early on in this game, hyper target Chris Godwin over the middle. Let him do what he does and get those tough third down catches, move the chains, make some plays, make Marlon Humphrey miss after, he catches a ball and tries to get some yards after the catch. Evans, he's dealing with whatever that injury was that had him on and off the field against New Orleans. He's going to have an advantage. Jalen McMillan or Sterling Shepard, maybe even Marquez Callaway, who they signed this week, they could have an advantage because the outside corners for Baltimore are not good. But in order to take advantage of that, you gotta pick out that bully, just like in a schoolyard. You gotta pick out that big bad bully and attack him immediately, and that's what they're gonna have to do with Godwin going up against Humphrey.
I think James, with 2 teams, I said this on the 813 on my report. Like, you are what your record says you are. That really is true. They're 4-2. Ravens are 4-2. These are 2 good teams. So you can't be making mistakes. Whoever makes the less mistakes, I think, is going to win this game. They're. You look at the talent; it's pretty close. Each have your strengths. Each have your weaknesses. It is on Monday Night Football. I'm hoping that there's going to be more Buccaneer fans than purple, than Ravens fans. I'm telling you what, man, it's been surprising to me. These Buccaneer fans have been selling their tickets, James. Like I said, I was shocked when Denver had so many. I mean, Denver, Colorado, it's not an easy trip. They had so many. So I'm hoping there's going to be the home field advantage. And just to have the fans get a chance after what everybody has gone through. Let me tell you, this week I went to the Tampa Bay Lightning NHL game at Amalie Arena, and they showed on the big board there was about 25 or 30 linesmen from Vancouver. They were playing the Vancouver Canucks. They were here. We've had linesmen come from all over the country to help out with all the power outages. And when they showed them up on the big screen, Lightning fans stood up and gave him a standing ovation. John Cooper, that coach, even talked about it. It's giving me goosebumps. It was actually getting me emotional. Like, look at that. So it's going to be an emotional night at Raymond James Stadium for Buccaneer fans. So it's going to be good. It's going to be hyped, and I just hope that the Buccaneers come through as a team because it's going to be a hell of a battle, James. I can't wait.
Well, and I'll drop a little PSA, and I'm sure Sammer is going to yell at me for it, but that's okay.
Yeah.
The Bucks' next 4 games are a gauntlet. You get the Ravens at home, you get a second crack at the Falcons, you go to Arrowhead, then you host the 49ers. If the Bucs are going to lose a game, it's okay if it's this one. Over this next 4-game stretch, if you had to pick a game for the Bucs to lose, it's the game against Baltimore. And the reason is the Atlanta game is so much more important. If you drop to 0-2 against the Falcons, and that's the creamsicle game, everybody, all the fans are going to be hyped about the throwbacks and all of that, but the Bucs haven't performed well in those throwbacks, over the last, handful of times they've actually gotten to wear them. But if you fall to 0-2 to the Falcons and you fall basically another game behind them in the division, you are now fighting for the wild card. It's going to be really hard to overcome that division record. You're going to need a ton of help. So if you're going to drop a game, lose to the AFC team, beat the Falcons, and get yourself back in first place in the division and control your own destiny. Beat the 49ers, the other NFC team where seeding and other, playoff tiebreakers can come into play. It obviously everyone wants to see the Bucs win, but if you're going to lose one, don't get too upset if it's to Baltimore. I think they can beat Kansas City. Kansas City's got a great defense, but their offense stinks. It really is not good. They haven't scored over 20 points in I don't know how long. So, just nobody freak out. Nobody, cancel their Sunday ticket subscription or sell all their tickets if the Bucs lose on Monday night, because if you have to choose one, Monday's the one to lose.
You are speaking as a true professional. I'm glad you're not in the locker room giving them a talk, James, because
Oh, no,
no,
I wouldn't say that to them.
no, 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 no. And I worry. Any loss, you know how it can go. It can start to go south, and I don't want to see that. They've been resilient. That's the biggest
Yeah.
thing. They've been resilient. So if that does happen, I would not worry so far based on what I've seen so far from this team. It's going to be a battle, man. It's going to be a great team, and you're getting a team that's ascending. That's the thing, and they can beat you so many ways. But with that bad pass defense, they brought in a senior defensive consultant 2 weeks ago to try to come in to help board the defensive coordinator because they were having so many problems with the pass defense. And right now, if the Bucs can continue to churn out those yards and you get that running game going with the passing game going, I think they'll be okay. But that's what makes the NFL so great. These are two great teams. That's why we're doing this. That's why everybody's interested. Everybody's interested in checking out this podcast with Yarko. So I mean, no, I think it's going to be great, and I just hope that they don't make mistakes. Don't blow it. Don't lose it. Don't beat yourself because you need everybody. You need everybody for this one. I think right now the Ravens, right now, I'd say they're the best team in the NFL. The way they're playing, I put them up 1-2 against anybody, 4 in a row, unstoppable. Number one against the run. It's going to be a battle, James. It's going to be a battle.
100%. But, any given Sunday, any given Monday, that's why they play the games. It's
Hey,
not played
Monday,
on
yeah.
paper. All right, that's going to do it for this week. Again, check out all the content and shows available right here on the 813.tv. Follow on Twitter at the 813TV, at JARCO_Bucks, at Real Rock Riley, and make sure you're subscribed on YouTube. We want to thank you for taking a trip with us inside the 813.